it from here.
Okay.
So it's recording now.
Okay. All right, friends. I see Rob. I'm guessing the T is Tamby. Maggie. Melissa. Hi, friends. Welcome. Super excited that you're with us today. We'll give it a couple minutes for those that are available. Hey, guys. I love it. Getting it all dialed in on your technologies and stuff like that. Where are you guys right now?
Arizona.
Arizona. Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll jump in just to kind of honor everyone's time and to make sure that we're getting the most out of our time together. I think everybody knows me, but if you don't, I'm Jess. I'm our executive pastor at Crosspoint, but prior to that, I did children's ministry at Crosspoint, as well as a couple other churches. And so children's has always been something super exciting and near and dear to my heart. But beyond that, I went to school for counseling, specifically working with children. And that is something that I feel like God's made me for, is just ministering to families and ministering to children. And I'm super excited to be bringing this session to you guys today, because you're going to get to hear more so not from me, but from Miss Mel. And so Melissa MacDonald, she and I worked together at the Christian Missionary Alliance. She was our director of children's, basically for the nation, but she's been ministering to children's ministry leaders across the country, or across the world, not just in the US. And she also has a passion for children, went to school for counseling, has her master's in that realm, but has been more importantly working hands-on with families for, probably, I don't know. I'm not going to.
I think it's 17 years. I just did the math. So
okay, so it's a little while of ministering and connecting and finding out what it is that really makes working with children unique. And this year in particular, we're always thinking about how to best serve our families, but with COVID and our families having to learn at home this year, or so far, at least it's starting out with at home based learning, we recognize that a lot of parents are being thrust into a position where they have to figure out how to care for their children in a new way by juggling teaching as well as parenting, and the fact that these are kind of two different things, and yet at the same time there's some overlap. And Miss Mel had already developed a lesson called How a Child Learns and Loves. I'm forgetting something, but
listens,
learns, and loves. And I think you're going to really enjoy the content that she has for you guys today, because these are tools that will help you in making sure that your child is successful at home, no matter what. And it'll obviously apply with the teaching aspects, but it'll carry forward into the years and days ahead, even if you're not teaching at home. But this will really give you a foundation to make sure that you're not losing your mind when your child's going crazy trying to sit at the computer for 4 hours, when you learn that there's a reason your child was not made for this, and help you understand how to better navigate it. So I'm going to give it over to her.
All right. Thanks, Jess. Well, welcome everyone. If you want to, you can turn on your camera. You do not have to, but sometimes it's fun to see other people other than Jess and I, although we're kind of, good to look at, even though you missed your eyeliner today, Jess. So still looking good, man. Hey, I am so glad to be with you guys. I live in Iowa, so I am not anywhere near you, but I was born in California. So I feel like that makes me an honorary Californian. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this. Before we even get into the nitty gritty of it, I just want to encourage you. I think, this is a tough season. I think we can all agree on that. And you add the mix of kids into it, and then you add the routine being different, Then you add kind of, I'm sure, a little bit of that panic that comes in when you think, oh my word, I have to teach these kids. Like, I know they're mine, but I don't know if I can have them be mine all day, every day. And so all the challenges. And so one of the things is, I'm talking to a lot of parents. I'm not a parent, but I work with a lot of parents and I work with a lot of kids. One of the things that is applicable, whether you're a parent or not, is that God is walking with us in this, and that he equips us for what we need when we need it. So you may not feel like this is going to be easy, and it probably won't be easy, but God usually meets us in those times that aren't easy. And God never leads us somewhere he doesn't equip us for. So you can do this. You really can. And your kids are going to survive, and you're going to survive. So my encouragement to you, before you even get into the nitty gritty of, where should we have school be, and what does that look like, and what hours, is just make sure that you're tuning your ear to the heart of the Father. Because if you and Jesus aren't good, I guarantee you're not going to parent very well. I guarantee you're going to find yourself filled with more anxiety. I guarantee it's going to feel extra overwhelming. So find those moments where you can, to just make sure you're connecting with who he is, because this is a tough season for all of us. So what I want to do today is just give you some really practical things for you to not lose your mind as you figure out navigating the school year. So we're going to do this in order, kind of, and I put into the chat box, which, by the way, feel free to throw in there if you have any questions, but I put a file in there. This will also go back to Jess, and so she'll get it out to you when we get the recording out, so you can have it. But if you want to pull it open, you certainly can. It has most of the notes that I'm going to be sharing with you. It might be easy to refer back to. So what we're going to do is look at 4 specific learning styles, and we do say how a child listens, learns, and loves. And I think this is going to be a game changer for you. I have never not had it be a game changer. As we go through it, you might be really tempted as the adult to find yourself in one of these 4 areas. And I caution you on that, because this is not really a personality profile or anything like that. This is not the Enneagram. This is learning styles. I'm going to be throwing in some love language in there as well, and just kind of walking you through a little bit. But what you might find is you probably fit into a few of them, and that's because you're a functioning adult. And what that means is you've learned to adapt and learn in multiple different ways. So I get a lot of people who get really concerned, like, well, I think I'm all 4. Like, congratulations, like, you can do it. You will probably find 1 or 2 that feel the most comfortable to you. And I get that. There's definitely one on here that's very much me. And then there's ones that there's parts of that I feel as well. So as we go into that, just keep that in mind. You definitely will find your kids in here as well. So as you recognize your kid, you might even jot a note down and go, this is Tyler, or this is Harry, or whatever your kid's name is, because that may help you to refer back to later on as well. So let me just pray for us, and then we're going to jump in, and it's going to be fun. So let's pray. Father, thank you so much for your goodness, Lord. Thank you that you're not absent in the midst of this. Thank you, Lord, that you're personal. And God, thank you that we can call on you whenever we need to. So we do come before you humbly, saying, we don't know how to do this. We're not sure we can do this. And God, I can't help but think that we're exactly where you want us to be, which is dependent on you. So may that dependence on you be just a really sweet time of leaning into who you are and what we need from you. So teach us something new today, Lord. I pray whatever's of you would be remembered, and whatever's of me would be forgotten quickly. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, well, I need to apologize for my voice. I was out sanding a dresser, and I had a mask on, but I think I breathed in a little dust, so I feel like I'm like a junior high boy right now, losing my voice. So anyways, here we go. First one we're going to look at, as we look at these different learning styles and different types of kids, would be the analytic learner. Now, if any of you in the room or listening to this are a teacher, have any sort of teaching background, you might go, there's a lot more learning styles in this. Yes, I am just making this as simple as possible for you, because all our teachers go, well, there's actually 36. I'm like, but do you want me to teach all 36? So we're just going with the basics, okay? And I find every kid fits somewhere in here. So analytic learner, they use their heads, okay? So when it comes to making decisions, when it comes to thinking things through, they're using their head. So what this means is this isn't very emotional. This is just, I'm using my head to make these decisions. This is what I'm doing. A lot of times these kind of kids are a little more serious. At times they might come across even stoic. And what it is they're thinking. So they're always thinking through something. They love information. Information is their jam. So they want you to tell them as much as possible. So for instance, if I teach this often in context of speaking at church or being a Sunday school teacher, if I'm teaching about Noah's Ark, this is going to be the kid that's going to want to know all the details. Well, Miss Mel, how many animals went into the ark? I know they went 2 by 2, but do you know if they went in order of their name or their size? Miss Mel, what is gopher wood? Is it a hardwood? Is it a softwood? Where is it found? Why is it called gopher wood? Is it because a gopher peed on it one time? Like, why is it? So this is the kid that has all the questions. And you might feel like you're losing your mind if you have a kid like this when they never stop asking questions. And this goes beyond being a 2 or 3 year old that has all the why questions. Like, why? This is into like, these are the kids that are like, why is it that color? How did it get to be that color? Why would somebody, what? And you're kind of like, these are the kids where you start to lose your mind and you're like, because I said so. Just stop talking. I find with these kids, if you can understand them, I will say this too, as we go through this, you often will find yourself frustrated with the kid of your kid that's the most opposite of who you are. So for instance, if you're further down this list, you might be like, what is wrong with my child? Like, they're so weird. They're not weird. God created your kid unique. It might feel weird, and maybe they are a little weird at some point, but the point is, this is how God created them. This is also how they learn. So this isn't just them trying to be annoying. This is how they actually are learning. So this is the kid that is going to inundate you with questions. And you are going to feel so dumb sometimes. You're going to be like, I have no idea. In fact, you're going to be like, I never even thought to ask that question. Don't worry about it. Your job is not to answer all their questions. I find with these kids, a lot of times they just need permission to ask all the questions. And so Google is a beautiful thing. Grandparents are a beautiful thing, like refer this child. But they're going to want to know all of the information. One of the ways you can help to not lose your mind is make sure that you're teaching them with facts. So you can actually preempt a lot of this if you give them the facts. These are not the ones that need you to tell a great story or help them see it in context of historic. No, just give them the facts. They will do so much better if you give them the facts. And they usually start with the facts and then they can go on to other stuff. But they like the facts. They like the bottom line. They like to know exactly what they're supposed to know. If they their way of learning, oftentimes these are the kids that actually do just want to sit and listen. Like, they're the ones you will find that sit quieter than other kids. And they'll be like, can you turn that up? Because I want to hear that. And that's because that's how they're receiving information. So oftentimes we will think that they're awesome because they're quiet. So they are awesome. But just because they're quiet, or just because your other kid's not quiet doesn't mean they're not learning. So it's just difference in learning styles there. They're always thinking. I find with these kind of kids, especially as they get older, they're quiet. And it's they're either quiet or they're asking questions. And they're the kids that you almost don't know what to do with. So I had a kid, I was speaking at a church up in Seattle, and he asked me, Miss Mel, he's 11. He goes, Miss Mel, I have a question. How do you feel that quantum mechanics fits into the overall creation theory? And I remember just thinking, I don't think I like this kid anymore. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what quantum mechanics is. But here's the thing. He had been the most quiet kid. He also had been the kid that looked like he kind of hated my guts. Well, he didn't hate my guts. He was just thinking. So he'd kind of sit there and be like, Well, he was listening the whole time. So make sure you're aware they're always thinking. And they will, especially if they're young, they'll blurt out stuff they're thinking. They haven't learned those proper social things yet. So they'll just be like, did you know there's 36 chairs in this room? And you'd be like, oh, nope, didn't know that. Thanks for sharing. Like, that's because they're always thinking. They're always taking it in. they often, words of affirmation are important to them. So if we think about love languages, if you want this child, so if you have a kid like this and you want them to feel loved and you want them to feel like you notice them, use your words. They want you to point at, and here's the thing, don't just be like, you're really cute, I love you. They want you to say, I love the way that your mind works. I can see that the wheels are spinning and God gave you a very creative mind. And I love that. And I'm so proud. They want you to be specific. We're going to get down a little further where you'll find some other kids that are like, just tell me you love me. That's fine. Give me a present and we're good. These kids are like, tell me specifically what you like about me. So they need words of affirmation. So I'm going to pause there for just a second to see if you have any questions about this particular kid. I'd be interested to see, maybe put the thumbs up thing if you feel like maybe one of your kids is like this. Oftentimes too, if you're in a marriage, you might find this is where God has a sense of humor, and also where marriage therapists make good money. You often will marry someone who's opposite of you, right? And so you'll find somebody who, like, someone who's really into the analytic stuff. I want all the details. And then you might be the opposite. So the analytics gonna, they're gonna be, hey, you went to the grocery store, did you get a receipt for the checkbook? No, but I made made a new friend, or whatever. They're like, no, I didn't, but did you know there was a sale? And that was really exciting. So pretty funny. We got one that's close to this. Awesome. Definitely Tommy, age 6. Love that. Good. I'm hoping this is helpful. So keep in mind as you're teaching them that they're going to ask a lot of questions and that you're going to feel annoyed. You're going to feel like you're losing your mind at times. And that's okay. You're not going to lose your mind. You really aren't. But just keep in mind they want the facts and the bottom line. It's also okay to tell this one when to kind of shut it off and just go, I'm going to let you ask as many questions as you want for the next 5 minutes, and we're going to take a break. And keep in mind, parents, your job is you school your kids and love your kids and disciple your kids is not to indulge their every whim and their every need. That's actually not your job. And in fact, I don't think that's true discipleship if you're just giving them what they want and what they need all the time. Discipleship goes, here's some boundaries. And I'm going to appreciate who you are, but I'm also going to put some boundaries up. It's like we have Zeke, who's almost 5, who's like this too. Good. Okay, next one is the common sense learner. They use their hands to do things, and usually are using their hands to make decisions too, because they're doers. So they're very tactile, they're doers. They love testing ideas. So this is a kid who is going to love to experiment on things. Usually when they're experimenting, it's for a purpose. You'll find a little bit further as we go, there's another learning style that just likes to have ideas because they're fun. The common sense learner loves practical ideas that could actually solve a problem. So this is going to be the kid that comes in and tells you that something wasn't working, so they took it apart and they fixed it, and they're 5. And you're like, oh dear. These kids are going to be hands-on, and they're going to want to play around at things. So they love testing ideas. I had a kid at my church I was working at in Idaho. He was my lawn boy, I called him. His parents would bring him, he'd mow the lawn for me. He was like 5th grade. He comes in one day, he's like, Miss Mel, I got your lawn mowed. I'm like, thanks. And he goes, by the way, the mower was making a noise. And so I just took it apart. And I'm like, you did what? I'm like, what did you do that? And he goes, now it's making an even bigger noise. I'm like, oh my word. Well, his name is Cole. And today he's in his 20s and he's one of the top mechanics on snowmobiles on the West Coast, like in the Pacific Northwest. Of course he is. Like at age 10 was taking apart my lawnmower. So keep in mind, this is how they learn. It might feel really frustrating to you at times because you might feel like you're losing your mind when they never stop taking everything apart. So you might come in and find one day they've just taken the clock apart, or they've decided to rebuild something. This is how they learn. So doing for them is a strategy for learning. They are not going to be the ones that just want to sit down and read a book. They're going to want to try something. I think in some ways, this kid probably has the most energy and it requires a lot of energy. Just kind of have to keep an eye on them all the time. Like, what are they doing now? What are they doing now? So, but they keep this is a key phrase. Doing is a strategy for learning. So if you want them to learn well, they got to do it. Now that can get challenging. There's certain times where they can't do something that, they've got to actually sit and listen, or they've got to sit and read. Again, keep in mind, good parenting doesn't indulge a kid's every want. So this is part of you helping your kids grow in wisdom as they realize, okay, I have to learn in ways that maybe aren't my favorite. My guess is if I were to ask you guys how you like to learn, if you really strip it down, you probably have a specific way. So you might be one that really likes to listen. So maybe you put podcasts on and you have a podcast on while you're mowing the lawn or whatever. Or maybe you're someone who's like, no, I have to do it. I want to go out and I like to tinker around. I like to take things apart and put them back together. You might be one that learns by trying things. So kids are the same way. So you also, though, have learned to learn in other ways, like we talked about earlier. This is how when we go to church back in the day, you might remember earlier, when we went to church, we would sit and listen to a sermon. Well, that's actually not how most people prefer to learn. Most people prefer to have something else going on. So for me, I don't mind listening if I can do something with my hands. I'm a great listener. Like if I could have my iPad and play a game while the pastor, who happens to be my dad, is speaking, I would retain so much more information, but it's frowned on when adults do that at church. It's very disappointing. So, but what we've had to do is learn. We've had to learn how to receive information. So it's not a bad thing if not every lesson is something they can do. Sometimes they just have to buck up, and this is part of becoming a functioning human. And so it's an okay thing. But when you can, let them do. This might be the kid that needs to do some learning outside. Not every kid is going to flourish. And the school system has so many great wins, but there's some flaws because there's not a lot of individual learning. And so you might have a kid who's going to learn better if you put a table outside on the deck, because they're going to be able to be outside and they will get through their work so much quicker if they can be outside. So just keep that in mind. This is an okay thing. So they, let me get through my notes. Give them something to do. So when you feel like you're losing your mind, give them something to do. So if you feel like they're never gonna get this, this is not the time to press harder. This is the time to take a step back and maybe give them a break. Now, these kids usually, like their love language is serving. They love to serve. So if they can do something for you, that brings them joy. So there's nothing wrong with giving them a job. And I wouldn't call it a chore. I would call it a job. I'd let you know, this is how you can help mom today, or this is how you can help the family. And what you might find with these kids is they need more breaks in the school day, and they need to go out and do something. Often with kids, like when I'm teaching at church, I look into their eyes. And if I know they're not tracking with me, I have stopped asking them to sit still and pay attention. And I've started to just acknowledge they're not tracking. And so what we do anymore is we'll stand up and we'll do 10 jumping jacks. And I'll look in their eyes. And if I still see like a little devil inside there, I'm like, nope, 10 more. We have a church that's kind of out in a cornfield here in Iowa. So we send them, they run around the church. They'll come back and they're out of breath, and usually they're ready. They just need it to move. Okay. So keep in mind, God created kids to move. And it really is unfair of us when we expect them to sit still for a long period of time. They'll have that in them. So even a quick 10 jumping jack moment can help them a lot. So give them something to do. The common sense learner will always get the job done. And what this means is they love to help. They will do anything they can to help, and they'll make sure it happens. So these are great ones to put in charge of something and say, so I always talk about, like, if I'm at home and I have an analytic kid and I say, okay, I want you to set the table. The analytic kid is probably going to get the job done. It's probably going to take quite a while. And the reason it's going to take a while is because they are going to be looking at all the details. And they might even be the kid that's like, well, this one is 3 fingers from the plate and this one is 2. So I need to move that. And they might get a ruler. Like, they're thinking about all of that. Your common sense learner, they're just going to do it. They're just going to get it done. And it might not be as pretty as you think, but they're going to get it done. So keep that in mind. They love to have a job to do. So if you can help school look more like this is something we get to do instead of something we have to do, it's going to help them appear a lot more. For them, acts of service are important. They flourish And what you want to do is know your kids well enough to know what works for each one, because kids are different. So they're going to be the ones that they want to serve. So, and it's not just that they want to serve, it actually brings them joy and it helps them find out who they are. And I would say it even fulfills the purpose of why God created them. So let them do that. Any questions on Common Sense Learner? Go ahead and write that in there. You very well might feel like you are a Common Sense Learner. If you're one of, and I shouldn't say it's just guys, because it's not. Women can be like this too, but you might be the guy who's always tinkering in the garage because you're like, I think I could build this. I think I could make this happen. So that might fit for you as well. So as we go on, oh, that's good, Jess. I like what you said. If you know this is your child, maybe have them be active before saying yes, 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 absolutely. Let them be active. So yeah, we're switching now. So we kind of are on one side of the spectrum, and now we're like, we're going to the other side. So you had the analytic learner that's using their head to make their decisions and to do things. Common Sense is using their hands. Now we're going into a different area, okay? So the dynamic learner, they use their spirit. They use their spirit to make a decision. Now, if you found yourself as either an analytic or Common Sense, you literally might be like, what does that even mean? Use your spirit. Like, what is this, voodoo? What is she talking about? Like, what? This is so opposite. This is so like, so this is, God created us all differently. So the dynamic learner, they use their, so they just feel things, okay? They just get worked up and, oh, I have this idea. So they use their spirit. They're hard to understand if you're over on the other side, because you don't understand. You're like, what do you mean? What does that, what? So, but they'll use their spirit. They love big ideas. These are the kids that come in and they have sometimes the best ideas and sometimes the worst ideas. Like you might have a kid that's a dynamic learner if they just always come in with an idea. Mom, I have this idea. What if we try this? Oftentimes they'll say, I have an idea for an adventure, because dynamic learners are all about adventure. They're all about risk taking. So they're like, I have this idea. What if I tried jumping from the roof onto the trampoline and doing a cannonball into the pool? Do you think that's a good idea? No, not a good idea at all, right? That's a good way to die, kid. But they always have an idea. They're always thinking through things. The dynamic learner, what's funny about them is they have ideas where the Common Sense had ideas for getting things done practically. The dynamic learner just has a lot of ideas. So they're always going to have an idea for you. I will be completely honest. I am a dynamic learner. This is the most me. God was very kind to the world when he made the dynamic learner is the lowest percentage of kids. And that's because we would break the world if there were too many of us. So if you have a dynamic learner, you're blessed and highly favored and could probably use a little anxiety pill every now and then too, because we can drive you crazy, all right? Because we always have ideas. And like, so I've just been married 2 years, and my husband and I, as different can be. He's much more analytical, slower than I am. Like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I have an idea. Let's go on an adventure today. And he's like, can I just get some coffee maybe? Could we start there? But I'm like, oh, what if we try this? Like today I decided I'm going to sand down that dresser, and I went out and I bought everything and I've been sanding the dresser for an hour. So that's just how I go. So dynamic learners will feel exhausting to you at times as well. You might feel like you're losing your mind with them when they never like the idea that you have. Okay, so the dynamic learner, bless us all. Okay, I will say this, that the dynamic learner I feel is the most misunderstood learner, and I'm not just saying that because it's me. I think often this learner comes across as rebellious or belligerent, or like you purposely don't like my idea just to be a jerk. That is usually not true. Now, of course, they're not perfect. And of course there's moments, but what they're usually, keep in mind, is how they learn. So when they have these ideas, it's all about learning. So like I'll come up with ideas and I'm like, okay, I'm planning a trip. Like now we're going to go to Greece. And my husband's like, we're not, we can't go to Greece because we can't get on an airplane right now. And I'm like, I know, but for me, now I know how to do it when we can. Like to me, that I just learned how to do that. And it's like the best most obnoxious thing for him sometimes. This is Ellie. Yes. Oh, Jess, God bless. Yep. You need a support group for these dynamic learners. We're the best and the most just challenging at times. So, but you might feel like you're losing your mind, because this isn't just about being belligerent and disobedient. They literally are just like, I have an idea. So you might say, okay, we're going to get up. I'm going to have breakfast at 7:30. We're going to start school at 8. We're going to take a little break at 9. And then they're going to be like, Mom, I'm just feeling like I probably should sleep till 7:45 because I haven't been sleeping very well because I have so many thoughts in my head. And could I have a break at 9:15? Because I think I might need to have a banana by then. And you're just like, seriously? Why can you never like my idea? They're never going to like your idea. And I'm sorry. It feels really discouraging. One of the things I've had to do as I work with these dynamic learners is to hold my plans really open and go, what are the things I need to make a line in the sand on? And what are the things that really don't matter? Like, I have found too, dynamic learners usually do have better ideas. Like, there's times I keep saying, like, sorry, I don't know what's happening. There are times where their ideas make more sense. And I really believe God has given them a very creative mind. And so they'll come up with something and you are just, oh, actually, yes. So to illustrate this, I was teaching about the Trinity to kids. And I hate talking about the Trinity to kids because it's so hard to explain. And so one little girl was in the Sunday school class, and her mom doesn't come to church. Her mom just kind of drops her off. And she raises her hand. She's like, Miss Mel, my mom said that the Holy Spirit is pink and that he is a pink color and God is a blue color in Jesus. And I'm like, oh boy, like that. Wrong. And she goes, is that right? I'm like, I just probably there's some other ideas I have. So she started asking more and more questions. Finally, I said, why don't you just hang out for a few minutes afterwards and we'll chat. So we're sitting, we're chatting, and I'm trying to explain the Trinity. And I said, it's like water. So I'm using the water illustration. It's like, there's ice is water, steam is water, it's water, blah, blah, blah. And it's not working. Like, I'm looking at her and she's like, huh? And I'm like, this is just embarrassing. I am an internationally known children's speaker and I can't figure this out. I don't know how to do this. And she puts her hand on me. She's like, Miss Mel, it's okay. I think I got it. And I'm like, what did you get? I'm like, there's no way you got it. She goes, well, is it kind of like hair? And I'm, what do you mean? And she goes, well, like my eyelashes are my eyelashes, but they're also hair. And my eyebrows are my eyebrows, but they're hair. And the hair on my arms is my arm hair, but it's hair. And I was just literally like that I was like, okay, can you repeat that one more time? So you said your eyelash, because it's the best, honestly, the best explanation for the Trinity that I've ever heard. And since that day, I've used it for kids every time. And she was in first grade. Now, if you look at it, and she's a dynamic learner, she's now in 8th grade. All right. She's taking over the school. So if you look at a dynamic learner and you just focus on frustration, because I could have been like, no, you need to understand it's ice and steam. I would have missed what she was offering, because she was offering the creativity in her mind. So I have to hold my ideas pretty loosely. We have to do that anyways as parents or as people who have kids or work with kids, because I don't know about you guys, nothing seems to go the way you plan. And so I have to hold it loosely and understand I might need to hear this. Usually too, what I will do is instead of I would rather not get into a giant fight over something that doesn't really matter. So if it really doesn't matter, then I go, you know what? That's a great idea. I never thought about having a banana at 9:15. Let's do that today. Tomorrow though, we're going to do mommy's schedule. Okay. Now, you have to decide as a parent. I can't tell you how to navigate that, because you have to decide. And my parents walked a real thin line between crushing my spirit and allowing me to soar. And they would say that off, like it was hard. I will say too, dynamic learners are, they usually are either going to like lead a prison gang later in life, or they're going to do really good things for the world. Like there's not a lot of in between. So if your dynamic learner, if Ellie falls in love with Jesus, watch out, world. Do you believe that, Jess? Like, she could just, yeah. However, there's just this fine line, because with that, your dynamic learner is very persuasive. So they usually can talk just about anyone into anything. And you can read that as manipulative, but I really would rather say they're persuasive. So it's all about how you harness it. And it's all about, make sure you don't speak doom over your kids. Be like, oh my word, what's wrong with you? Why do you have to be like that? So my niece is a dynamic learner. She's a tiny miniature version of me. It's like blessed. And we just say, you have great leadership skills. And so she'll go around, I'm a leader. Like, you're also really annoying and a tyrant at times, but you are a leader. It's leadership skills. But we have to have conversations about honing in our skills and, using the right time to do it. So they're going to persuade people. They're going to try to persuade you as well. And I want you to hear me on this. You are not going to ruin your kid if they persuade you one day and you just don't have the energy to fight it. You're not going to ruin them. So, let it go, live to fight another day tomorrow. So find that balance. It's a tough one, but they're fun, hard kids to raise for sure. Definitely hard to do school with. Keep in mind when you're teaching them, give them options. I honestly would say, instead of telling them exactly how the day is going to go, you might go to them and say, hey, we're doing school from home. Can you help me figure out the schedule? What would you like the schedule to be? You lose nothing by doing that. And what happens when they feel like they have, when they get a say, they have buy-in. So also, you have all the clout in the world when later they go, I don't want to do that. And you go, but you wrote the schedule. So we're doing what you said and we're going to stick to that. So allow them to do that. Let them have options. Do that. And then keep in mind too, with these dynamic learners, because sometimes they can feel so exhausting, quality time is really important for them. Dynamic learners feel misunderstood probably 90% of the time. And so they desperately need you as mom and dad to see them and love them for who they are, which means sometimes they need quality time just with you, not with anyone else. You might take your common sense kid out and you guys go and you build something, or you go paint something, or you go and you serve somewhere. Your dynamic learner needs to go on a car ride. They need to go on a car ride, drive to the beach, put the windows down, play loud music, and just spend time with them. Questions about this? This is a tough one. So I'm curious. We got Maggie. Is Emily a dynamic learner, or was it common sense? I didn't look at that. Dynamic. Okay. Yes, you guys, this is amazing. Your kids are going to change the world. They really are. All of your kids are. I feel like, but these dynamic learners especially, they're pretty cool. It's hard though. Oh, we got another dynamic. Good. I'm hoping this is helpful for you, because what I want you to come out of this is, first of all, feel like, okay, maybe we can do this, but also have a greater love for how God created your kids, because God creates each one unique. And if you're always trying to get them to be like you're going to find frustrating. Rob, what if you are, or you mean your child is a combo? Not a problem. And that often happens. And I will find most often those combos happen on the two sides of the spectrum here. So you might feel like you have a kid that's analytic and common sense. That's pretty normal. And you might feel like you have a kid over here that's dynamic and, what's the other one? Creative, imaginative. So if that happens, don't worry about it. You just need to keep in mind that they're going to need kind of a mixture of things. They're going to need to move. They're going to need to ask questions and stuff like that. So you could go, you know what, for science today, we're going on a walk around the block. So we're going to keep moving and you're going to ask questions, or whatever that looks like. So great question. All right. Last one is the imaginative learner. Imaginative learners use their hearts to do things. They use their hearts to make their decisions. Their hearts drive their day. All right. You might have a dynamic or an imaginative learner if maybe every morning they come down dressed as a different princess. And if you do not call them the princess they are dressed as, they will not speak to you. Like, they'll be the ones that go, I woke up today and I'm Princess Sophia. That's what you can refer to me as. They're very imaginative. They're not crazy. They're just imaginative. And they want you to just enter into that with them. So they use their hearts They're very driven by their hearts. They love people. And if you have an imaginative learner, they are probably the ones that are having the hardest time right now because they need people. They are extroverts who love people. And it is a genuine love for people. It is not these people are so annoying. It is a genuine, I love people. And they thrive being around people. So you might even take them to the grocery store and you see their mood suddenly go up because they're like, people. And maybe you have to hold them back from hugging all the strangers. But they love people. You might feel like you're losing your mind when they never stop talking. All right, imaginative learners have a lot of words. A lot of words. And they always have a story to tell you. And quite honestly, in the safety of this, sometimes their stories are very boring. And that is just how it goes. Kids don't know how to tell stories very well yet. So you probably know what I mean. If you have to sit through some of these stories and you're like, yeah, fourth time hearing that, it's still not funny. Not a good fit. You know, you just love this child anyways, because they're who they are, but they won't stop talking. So when I teach these kids, I can spot them right away because they're the ones who light up a room. Your analytic learner's not going to light up the room. They're going to be a presence in the room, but they're not going to come in and go, I'm here. I know you're all so excited to see me. You know, they're just going to come in and do their thing. The imaginative learner is going to come in and announce that they're there. They're going to make sure that everybody feels loved. They're going to go around, oh, I love your scarf. It's so pretty. Oh, I have those shoes. They're so, they will help everyone feel comfortable. So they have usually the gift of hospitality where nobody is a stranger to this child. This can be terrifying parenting as well. But they'll make everyone feel comfortable. What you need to keep in mind, and so you don't lose your mind, is make sure you give them time to talk. What's interesting about these kids is not so much that they need you to hear everything you're saying, but that they need to be given permission to talk. Like they usually just need permission to talk. So let me tell you what I do. And you can do this with your kids. And I do this with these kids all the time. It's never hurt anyone's feelings. You can't do this with adults. But I will tell them, you know what? I want to hear your stories. But because we're tight on time, I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. But you can talk for the whole 2 minutes and I'm going to sit here and listen. They will be like, seriously? You're going to listen to me for 2 whole minutes? They will delight in it. And so you just sit and you let them talk. And then you say, 10 more seconds. And then you go and they're done. And I promise you'll stop them mid-sentence because they will never be done talking. They just always have more to say. And what you might feel like is you're trying to follow the storyline and you've got dizzy, and that's not the point. The point is that you're making eye contact, you're listening to them, and you're present. They need that. So if you feel like they're having a hard time not talking, you need to give them permission to talk. So one of the things I'll do is anytime when I'm speaking to kids, before I start speaking, I let them talk. Because I always feel like it's very unfair to ask them to be quiet to listen to me when I haven't listened to them. So you might start out your school day with, what was the high, low, and the funny part of your day yesterday? And you let everyone kind of talk for just a minute. Let your kid talk. And then go, okay, now we're going to be quiet because we're going to focus on this. That will go a long way. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you're constantly telling them to be quiet. They're just going to talk too. So you're probably going to still spend a lot of time asking them to be a little quieter. They always notice others. These imaginative learners have the biggest hearts and they're very observant to other people. So they're the ones that will notice if somebody looks sad. If they see the neighbor and go, oh, it looks like Miss Shirley's sad today. Do you think she's sad, Mom? And they have the biggest heart. And they'll come up to me when I'm teaching, Miss Mel, are you okay? Because today you look like maybe you're a little sad. And I'll be like, I don't know, maybe I am a little sad. Now that you mention it, yeah. They notice. They're the ones when I'm teaching a group, they're the ones that will notice if someone else is not okay. So I was teaching Sunday school one time, a big group, and this one of these, it's in the back, and she's like this. And I'm like, all right, you just hold it together. There's 40 kids watching. And she's like, finally, I'm like, why? She's like, blood. He's bleeding. I'm like, oh, okay. I would never have noticed that this kid's bleeding from the nose because I had all these other kids I was watching. So they're really great at kind of noticing what's going on. They're actually usually more in tune than adults are. So they'll sense it in the room. These are the ones that you can't get you can't get your own emotions past them. So you might feel like you're really hiding the fact that today's a hard day. They'll know it. And so it's better for you to sit down and just go, you know what, mommy's having a hard day today. Great. You know what? They are going to hug you. They're going to kiss you. They might pray for you, and you'll feel a little better. But don't try to hide it, because they can read you. They'll know exactly what's going on. He meets people and everyone knows him. Yes, everywhere we go. I think Zeke and I would get along really well. I'm a big mix of these two, the dynamic and the imaginative. I am very friendly. Everybody is my friend. And I always clearly have a lot of words to say. So I understand that. Lastly, I think that says physical tough. Hopefully it doesn't say that in the notes I gave you. Physical touch is important to them. So they're very touchy. These are the ones that usually will want to be touching you when they're talking to you. They're the ones that want to be as close to you as possible. And sometimes you're like, please get off me. Like, mommy needs a minute, or daddy can't have you sitting on my head the whole time. Physical touch is a big deal to them often. Now, if you know anything about the love languages, if you don't, grab the book, The 5 Love Languages for Kids. It's very, very good. And the one that we don't have in here is gifts, which is the other love language, giving and receiving gifts. All of these can switch. So your kid, it might be different. Those love languages don't fit perfectly here, but I found in general, these work. These are pretty typical, but they usually need physical touch. So if you have a little one that maybe they're starting kindergarten or first grade, you might actually have to have them in your lap while you start school. You might need to do that. You might need to sit right next to them, and they might even share your chair. And I know that might feel frustrating, but that makes them feel secure, and that helps them learn better. So you might even go, for this first hour, I'm going to sit right next to you. And then you're going to try sitting on your own, because keep in mind, we're helping them grow. We're helping them figure out how to be a functioning human. So that means they have to learn how to operate differently than everything that's familiar. So, yeah, imaginative learners, I always say if they had a theme song, it would be the Won't You Be My Neighbor song from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, because they just want everyone to be their best friend. And so for them, if you can just spend some time with them and listen to them. And I will say this, give them a time limit on the talking. It works. The other thing I'll do with them when their stories, they'll go, Ismael, I have a really funny story. This is what I do, and I do this everywhere. I'll say, I really want to hear it. Can you just tell me when the funny part is so I know when to laugh? Because sometimes I don't understand the funny parts. And kids, you can't do this to adults. I've tried, and it is not kind to them, apparently. I think it's kind. But, and they're like, okay, I'll tell you. And it's hilarious to watch them tell the story. And they're like, that was the funny part. So then you laugh, and they're like, oh, I knew you'd think it was funny. It still wasn't funny, but it means that I care enough about them to want to engage in what they're saying. And I've learned to stop I felt like I was dodging a freight train every time they told me a funny story, because I never knew the funny part. So now will you let me know when it's the funny part? Oh yeah, never has offended a kid yet. In fact, they love me even more because I care enough about that. So those are the 4. I'm sure you found your kid somewhere in here. My guess is you might have had a combo. You probably found yourself a little bit as well. And if you've got little ones, so if you've got those 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, sometimes they're still figuring it out. And then you've got sometimes where you know exactly, you're like, nope, this is you. Last thing on the imaginative learners, they really like color and art. So they love to draw. These are the ones that they're not going to do great if you just put some lined paper in front of them. You might, as they're listening to a lesson, you might have them draw the lesson that they're hearing. You might make sure that they have multiple colored pencils or crayons to do their homework with, do their thing, because that brings life to them. They love color. They love to draw. Your analytic learner is probably like, I want a number 2 pencil and a sharpener, and we're good to go. So there's a difference there. Combo of all 4. Congratulations, Rob, you're a functioning adult. Good job. That's great. I can definitely be a combo of all 4. I'm actually fairly analytical, but the heart of who I am is more on the other side, but I can be very analytical, and I'm not very often common sense because I'm really bad at putting things together, but I can always figure it out. I can always figure it out. So I understand that. Jess, let me turn it to you for a minute.
No, I super appreciate what you've shared so far. Like you said, I hope that each one of you listening today can identify where you feel like your student might fall. And one of our hopes is that as a result of getting a better understanding or a sneak peek into the inner workings of your child's brain and heart and how they operate for learning and listening and loving, that might give you some clues to structure your days for success. We know that it's going to be stressful. Potentially parenting your kid, setting them up for school, as well as navigating your work life or whatever you have going on at the same time. And so I'm curious in terms of questions that you might have now that you have some awareness of where your student might fall, thoughts of what you might want to know more in terms of setting them up for success at home, or questions about that. The chat is open on the side. Some of you have already placed thoughts, comments there, which is great.
So Jess, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You say Ellie is the dynamic learner. As we went through all four, did that still ring true at the end?
She's a little bit imaginative, but I think that's because she's 3 too. So she likes dressing like a princess. But we do a lot of the things like you were mentioning. So I have kind of a hard set schedule in the sense that I have certain meetings I have to be in throughout the day, but I'm at home with her. And so what we do is we schedule her day together. So I'll map out the bones at the times where she has to do something else because I'm in a meeting or whatever. And then she can pick when we go outside or when we have snack or when we do art or yoga or whatever. And she sets our day, which has been working really well when we're together. And I think
now some people would think you're crazy because you're letting a 3-year-old set your schedule, but you're actually not, are you?
No.
So she's not setting the schedule.
Yeah.
Yep. But my guess is if you weren't letting her contribute, you'd have a real rough time. Yeah.
Yeah, we fight.
Yeah.
So that's not it. That's learning really early on that's not going to be ideal for us. And so, yeah.
Good. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Awesome. And one of the things that we, so Rebecca Robinson is on this call with us, and she is our children's ministry director at Crosspoint. And she has been working with her team. Tawny and Maggie are also a part of that team who are on this call right now to develop a parenting kind of network so people can share ideas about what's working for their kids, how we're setting our kids up for success, but ultimately in setting our kids up for success, we're setting our home up for success, right? So that way you're not as stressed out while you're going into a meeting because you know your kids are set up well. So you're going to be hearing more from us in terms of places that you might be able to post ideas or share resources that you discover or creative ways. I know when I was working in the school context, I worked a lot with like our ADD kind of kiddos. And so finding busy ways to keep them entertained while still being focused in one spot, because we can't have those kids running around. So there's a lot of really cool ways that you can engage a child in learning. And I don't know if you know, but in California, they're doing, for most of our public schools, we're doing online based learning. So they have to be at their computer from anywhere from 9 to 1 or like 8 to 3. That's a lot for kids. They're not meant to sit in one spot like that.
That's harsh.
And so the more that we can weave in creative ways to serve them well, that they're excited to go to school, because that's another thing is we don't want to get them in the habit of feeling begrudged and they hate it every day. Then that's a whole other fight that'll creep up. So we're developing some networks so that way parents can exchange ideas. We're also contemplating starting a co-op at the church where families can potentially, parents of second graders get together and help kids learn together. So you'll be hearing more about as there's information about that coming out. If you're interested in any of those, the network or the co-op, definitely put that in the chat and Rebecca will follow up with you. But when Mel gave us that worksheet or that graphic of the 4 styles, I would encourage just printing that, putting that somewhere in front of you. So that way, when you hit those junctions with your child, perhaps it's an argument, maybe it's just feeling discouraged or frustrated in your own spirit, you can refer back to this as like, oh yeah, when I get frustrated, I'm going to do this. Or it's not that the child is trying to frustrate me, it's that this is how she learns. So how do I re-engage that piece in a healthy way? These tools are all really great for that. So any other questions? We want to be mindful of time for sure, but also want to set you up as much for success to navigate the school year well. First and third graders and possibly kinder and preschool. Yeah, that sounds fun. The dynamics of not only different learning styles, but different ages.
Yeah, you guys are heroes, seriously.
Absolutely, absolutely. First and third, yeah, homeschooling this year. And this is, I will say this before we wrap up, of just the importance of self-care, that as much as you understand and are paying attention to the needs and cues of your child, you need to be paying attention to your own needs and cues. If you're finding that you're getting really kind of quick in reaction, or you're finding that you're getting to a place of just discouragement about entering into a new day, those are your body's signs that you need to pay attention to some things for yourself. And so having a small group around you, if you're at Crosspoint, you know that we do that as a huge way of staying relational, but getting into one of these networks, talking to your student's teacher, because they're in this with you and they want to see your child be successful as well. Reaching out to myself, Rebecca, Maggie, Tawny, any one of us, we are here to help, but don't feel bad for asking for help. No one expects that you're going to be an expert in this right now. Take that pressure off of your shoulders and allow yourself to just enter into this with a whole lot of grace and trust, like Mel started with, that God is with you in it, and he will help guide you through this. But we're all in this together to some extent, and let's not lose sight of that. So yeah, co-op for kinder. We'll definitely keep that in mind, guys. Yeah, we're talking about 6th graders having a special position specifically for them, because we're finding that's kind of the age group where there's the lean from they can stay by themselves versus they can't. 6th grade seems to be this magic age where it's like, we're not quite sure they can actually survive on their own. So any other thoughts? All right, friends, well, let me pray for you, and then we'll wrap up for today. But Mel's going to send us this video as well as that resource. I'll forward that along, as well as to anyone else who couldn't be here today. But we want to keep the conversation going. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. And so we're here for you. But let's pray. Jesus, I just thank you. I thank you for this time. I thank you for the wisdom and knowledge of Mel and the creative ways that she's helping us understand the children that you've blessed us with. Lord, this season is unique and it feels like it's surrounded with potential pitfalls, but we know that we can avoid them by relying on you, by being close to your community, by just entrusting every aspect to you. So help us to do that. Help us to get out of our own ways, maybe releasing some of our personal expectations or others' expectations on us, and rather just enter into the day with a anticipation that you're already there, that you're in the details, so that you will help us navigate it. Help us to just love our children well, that they may come into relationship with you first and foremost, and that is what we want to see in addition to their education, and that ultimately if they come away from their days knowing that they're loved by you, that is the greatest success we could ever have. So we just thank you again for this time. Bless each family that is here, and we just love you. We pray all this in your name. Amen. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.